Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to explain what a stalemate is. So when we start playing chess, we learn all the moves, we learn check and checkmate, and we learn how to win games by checkmate. The A very common mistake that we make is we try to get closer to the king, like for example queen here, and then suddenly black has no moves. So here it is stalemate. Stalemate means when you're not giving a check and your opponent has no moves. That's what stalemate means. It's a draw. The result of the game will be a draw then and there. So in this position, if white plays a move like queen here, black cannot move the king here, cannot move the king here, cannot move the king here. There is no move for black. But it is not checkmate because there is no check. You are not really attacking the king. It's not a check. So it is a stalemate. A stalemate means it's a draw. So you don't want this move to be played by white. White has to play a move like queen d2. And then black has one square for the king. And then checkmate. So when you're careless and play a move like queen c2, you end up making a draw. Instead of winning the game, it becomes a draw. So it's very important in the end game when you're about to finish the game. You have to make sure either you give a check, or if you're not giving a check, make sure he has a move. Make sure black has a square to move his king. So in this position, if you play move any move like queen here, he'll have a move here and then checkmate. That's fine. But if you do this, it's stalemate. Let me show you 4 examples from games of students. This is the first position. Here in this position, Madhumita plays knight to c3. She basically has a knight and a queen. She is winning the game. But then she plays knight c3 and the white king has no squares. This square is taken by the knight, this square by the queen, here knight, here queen. So it's a stalemate. It's a draw. So what should Madhumita have done in this position? She should have moved the knight anywhere else. You can move the knight here because then king has this square. Like for example, knight d4, king moves. Then you play queen here, he moves, and then checkmate. So this was a way to go. But she played knight c3 in the position. Here she played knight to c3 and became a draw by stalemate. Draw can happen in many ways. Stalemate is one of the ways in which a game ends in a draw. So this is something the players have to be aware about. Another example, you can see in this position, Siddhant has taken all of white's pieces. He is up by 2 rooks, bishop, knight, and 4 pawns. He can just finish the game by playing a move like rook h5. Rook h5 is game over, right? But what he did in this game was he just promoted, which was unnecessary because now king has no moves. All the squares are taken. That means it's a stalemate. It's not a check and there's no move. It's a stalemate, draw. So in a position that he should have won, he made a draw. So the move he should have done, there are many moves to win here actually. Even bishop f6 is checkmate. Even rook h5 is checkmate. Even knight t6 is checkmate. There are a lot of checkmates in the position, but he plays pawn forward and made a stalemate. Another example, Arav in this position is up by a queen and a pawn. What is the correct way to play this? Once your opponent's king is here, you have to keep him on that line by playing a move like queen e2. Now this move is very important because now there will be no stalemate. You can move the king, then you'll push the pawn, king moves, and then check and checkmate. So once you've made sure he has enough squares to move on, then you can go for checkmate. But in the game, what happened was he directly pushed the pawn. Stalemate. Very unfortunate, right? A position which is completely winning has become a draw. Half instead of 1-0. I mean 0-1. King has no squares. The pawn is taking away these 2 squares, queen is taking away these 3 squares. One more example. This was a very high stakes game. This was in the last SKB tournament on August last week, in 29th and 30th. Aditya Ranjan Sahu, who was rated some 1500 plus, is playing against the top seed Vaishnavi, who is also 1500 plus. Aditya is completely winning. You can see 4 pawns. White has just 2 pawns. Black just has to figure out a way to convert this. For example, here, how do you win? You can play something like pawn a3, king moves, then b3, b2, b1 is queen. There'll be no stalemate. But Aditya played without thinking, direct b3, and threw away the game, threw away the win. Now white is stalemated. There are pawns on the board, but pawns cannot move. So white has no moves at all. It's not a check. Stalemate again. So the correct way to play this was just push the pawn here. Now king has a square here, so he'll move. Then you push this pawn, give up the pawn, then push the pawn, and then you queen. Now you can give checkmate by just getting the king over and checkmate, right? But what happened was unfortunate. He played b3 and stalemate. So stalemate is something that you have to be aware of. You have to keep that in the back of your mind. And when you're about to finish a game, make sure your opponent king has a move if you're not giving a check. Like in this position, make sure white has a square to move on. Before making the move, just check if white has any squares. And only then play the move. If you see that white has no squares and you know it's going to be stalemate, play a different move. Any move, like king here, that's also fine. Any other way to win would have been fine. But he made a draw with b3. So stalemate basically means when you are not giving a check and your opponent does not have a move, it is called stalemate and it is a draw. Instead of winning, you are actually making a draw. It is different from checkmate. Checkmate is you're giving a check, he has no moves, you win. It's checkmate. Stalemate is you're not giving a check and he has no moves, and it's stalemate.